Emma Watson discovered the first hidden camera on the day she buried her husband. The second appeared when she caught her neighbor photographing the funeral. By the third, the police laughed in her face. By the fourth, she realized why her neighbor was so obsessed with her property. The underground bunker, the missing women, the evidence buried 6 feet beneath her rose garden. This widow didn't just get revenge on a peeping Tom. She exposed a killer hiding in plain sight, using nothing but theatrical smoke and mirrors that would change surveillance laws across America. Emma planted roses the day after burying Michael. Digging helped. Physical pain drowned the emotional. 38 was too young to be a widow. Cancer didn't care. She was on her knees, hands deep in soil, when sunlight flashed off something metal in her neighbor's second-story window. A camera lens pointed directly at her. Emma froze. Her breath caught sharply. The camera wasn't even hidden, mounted brazenly on a tripod behind her neighbor's window. Douglas Freeman had moved in 3 months ago. 50-something, always alone, never made eye contact at neighborhood gatherings, polite but distant. Emma had brought him cookies when he moved in. He'd taken them without a smile, closing the door before she'd finished speaking. Now he was filming her in her most vulnerable moments. She stormed across the lawn, pounded his door with dirt-stained fists. "Open up, Douglas, I see your camera." The door opened exactly 6 inches. Freeman's pale, angular face appeared in the gap. "Remove that camera, now!" Emma's voice shook with grief-fueled rage. Freeman's expression remained neutral, empty. "It's for a nature documentary." "Bullshit. It's pointed at my yard, not the trees. My house, my property rights." His voice was soft, almost gentle. Not defensive, confident. "I just buried my husband and you're filming me? What kind of sick—" "Privacy laws don't extend to outdoor spaces visible from adjacent properties." He recited this like he'd memorized it. "Please don't trespass again." The door closed in her face. Emma called the police immediately. Officer Mendez arrived an hour later, clearly annoyed at the minor complaint. "Look, lady, nothing illegal about security cameras on private property." "It's not security, it's invasion. He's recording me grieving." Mendez glanced at Freeman's window. "Unless it's pointed in your windows or capturing audio without consent. Our hands are tied." "So anyone can just film me in my yard? That's legal?" "Take it up with your HOA." He climbed back into his cruiser without another word. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Every creak made her check windows, pull curtains tighter. She'd never felt so exposed, so violated. The one place she should feel safe turned into a fishbowl. The next morning, she spotted a second camera. Smaller, mounted under Freeman's gutter, angled to capture her entire backyard. The HOA president, Brenda, met her at Starbucks, fake sympathy painted across her Botoxed face. "Our bylaws don't specifically address cameras, Emma." She patted Emma's hand. "Maybe wear more clothes in your yard?" She laughed at her own joke. "This isn't funny. I can't even grieve in peace. I'll add it to next month's agenda." She checked her watch. "I've got Pilates in 10. By day 4, Emma spotted a third and fourth camera, each strategically positioned to eliminate any private corner of her property. That night, she broke, sobbed on her bathroom floor. First Michael, now this. How much was she supposed to endure? "Think, Emma," she whispered to herself. "Think." Before cancer forced her career change, Emma had been a theater director. Productions were her specialty, creating worlds that looked real but weren't. An idea sparked. The next morning, she drove to the city library, used their computer instead of her own, searched property records, criminal databases, news archives. Douglas Freeman hadn't existed until 5 years ago. Before that, he was Douglas Freeland. Different spelling, different state, similar complaints from neighbors about surveillance. Digging deeper, Emma found a cold case from that same town. 3 women, missing, never found, last seen near Freeland's former residence. The investigation had stalled. Insufficient evidence. Person of interest never named publicly. Then Douglas Freeman had appeared in her neighborhood shortly after. Just a coincidence? Emma kept digging, found a true crime podcast about the disappearances. Local speculation had centered on a man who watched the women through cameras before they vanished. Her hands trembled as she closed the browser. That night, Emma stared at her ceiling, connecting impossible dots. Was she paranoid, grief-stricken and imagining conspiracies, or was something far more sinister happening? Either way, those cameras had to go. She called her old theater colleague, Marcus. I need your special effects expertise. All of it. Emma, haven't heard from you since Michael's funeral. I know, this is important. Marcus arrived the next evening with a van full of equipment and 3 friends, all former crew members from Emma's production days. You sure about this? He asked as they unloaded mysterious cases onto Emma's living room floor. Emma's eyes hardened. He wants a show? I'll give him the performance of a lifetime. They spent hours planning, checking camera angles, calculating timing. At exactly 3 a.m. they began. Emma stepped into her backyard wearing the black dress from Michael's funeral, in her hands a garden trowel and a small box. She moved to her rose garden, directly in view of all 4 cameras. For an hour, she dug, methodically, precisely, occasionally looking directly at Freeman's house. His bedroom light flickered on within minutes of her starting. A shadow moved behind the curtain. He was watching. From the hole, Emma removed what appeared to be human bones, high-quality props from Marcus's horror film work. She arranged them carefully, then extracted something from the small box, a wallet. She opened it to reveal a driver's license, clearly visible in the moonlight. The name, Douglas Freeland, his photo, his real name. It wasn't his actual wallet. Marcus had created it using public records. But Freeman wouldn't know that. Emma stared directly at camera number 2 and whispered clearly, I know who you really are. I know what you did to those women. She reburied everything except one bone fragment, which she carried inside. The bone had been planted beforehand. She'd never touched the actual soil. Marcus had prepared it all while outside camera view. Emma hadn't accused Freeman of anything specific, hadn't threatened him, hadn't trespassed. She'd simply dug in her own garden, found something, and spoken to herself. If Freeman was innocent, he'd be confused but unalarmed. If he was guilty, well, she'd know soon enough. Morning came. Emma gardened directly above the evidence, humming softly. When Freeman's door cracked open as he collected his mail, she waved cheerfully. Beautiful day for gardening, isn't it, Douglas? Or do you prefer Douglas Freeland? The mail dropped from his hands, his face drained of color. By noon, one camera had disappeared. Phase 1 complete. By nightfall, Emma's plan accelerated. Marcus had rigged her garage with specialized projection equipment while staying out of camera view. At midnight, they began Phase 2. Emma stood in her backyard, phone to ear, voice loud enough to carry. Detective Ramirez? Yes, I need to speak about those cold cases from Lakeville. The missing women. She paused, eyes locked on Freeman's window. I believe I've found evidence on my property. Yes, human remains. Freeman's silhouette appeared at his window instantly, frozen, watching. Emma continued, No, I can't explain how they got here. I just moved in 6 months ago. Another deliberate pause. Yes, my neighbor moved in shortly after me, Douglas Freeman, though that's not his real name. The silhouette vanished from the window. At 2 a.m., the projection started. Marcus had mapped Freeman's house exterior perfectly. Shadows crawled across his walls, not random shapes, but precise silhouettes that looked like police officers moving inside his home. Blue and red lights flickered against his siding, not from actual police cars, but from carefully positioned LED arrays hidden in Emma's shrubs. The effect, Freeman's house appeared surrounded by law enforcement conducting a silent raid. Through Emma's thermal camera, they watched Freeman's heat signature pacing frantically inside, checking windows, then retreating to higher floors. By morning, a second camera had disappeared. Emma called Marcus, voice low. He's taking the bait. Time for the finishing touch. That afternoon, 3 detectives arrived at Emma's house, actually Marcus's theater friends in convincing costumes with replica badges. Their conversation on Emma's porch was deliberately loud. Ms. Watson, based on the evidence you provided, we've opened an investigation into cold cases potentially connected to your neighbor. The bone fragment I found? Is it human? Preliminary tests suggest it matches DNA from one of our missing persons cases. Another detective turned, looking directly at Freeman's house. We'll need ground-penetrating radar for both properties. Judges signing the warrant now. Freeman's curtain twitched violently. The detectives then approached Freeman's door, knocked loudly. No answer. One spoke into a radio. Suspect not responding. Proceed with surveillance team. They returned to their unmarked car, actually Marcus's sedan with a magnetic government placard, and waited. Within an hour, Freeman's garage door opened. His car backed out slowly. He drove exactly at the speed limit down the street, never looking toward Emma's house. He's running, Marcus whispered, watching through binoculars from Emma's kitchen. No, he's checking if he's being followed. Emma knew prey behavior. He'll come back, but now he's scared. That night, Emma executed her boldest move. She called local news stations anonymously, tipping them about police activity in her neighborhood connected to cold cases. By morning, a real news van parked on their street. A reporter approached Emma as she collected her mail. Ma'am, we've heard rumors about an investigation on this street. Can you comment? Emma feigned surprise. I'm sorry, I can't discuss an ongoing investigation. The magic words. The reporter's eyes lit up. She had accidentally confirmed the story. Freeman's remaining cameras disappeared overnight. The next day, Emma spotted Freeman loading boxes into his car. Watching through her kitchen window, she called Officer Mendez. Remember when you dismissed my complaint about surveillance cameras? I think you should know my neighbor is suddenly packing to leave town, right after I found something disturbing buried in my yard. Mendez arrived within minutes this time. He approached Freeman's driveway just as Freeman was loading another box. Their conversation was brief. Emma couldn't hear the words, but Freeman's body language told everything. Rigid, defensive, eyes darting. Mendez followed Freeman inside his house. They emerged 30 minutes later, Mendez speaking urgently into his radio. More patrol cars arrived. Real ones. Emma watched from her window, heart pounding. Had her theatrical production accidentally struck truth? Later that evening, Mendez knocked on Emma's door. Ms. Watson, we need to talk about your neighbor and what you actually know about those missing women cases. Emma met his gaze steadily. Why don't you tell me what you found in his house first? Officer Mendez's face hardened. We found surveillance equipment, a lot of it. Not just exterior cameras, but devices designed for covert indoor recording. He paused, studying Emma's reaction. And a hidden room, behind a false wall in his basement, full of computers, monitors, hard drives, and photos, dozens of women, including you. Emma's knees weakened. She gripped the doorframe. But that's not all, Mendez continued. We found detailed maps of rural locations and journals. Names, dates, 3 names matched missing persons cases from Lakeville. Emma's theatrical accusation had hit horrifyingly close to reality. How did you know, Mendez demanded, about his real name, the missing women? What made you suspect him? Emma explained her library research, the coincidental timing, the cameras. But I didn't know, she admitted. Not really. I was just trying to scare him into removing the cameras. By pretending to find evidence, creating fake police activity? Emma tensed. Am I in trouble? Mendez stared at her, then slowly shook his head. Technically, you committed no crimes. You dug in your own yard. You had friends over wearing costumes. You spoke loudly about theories. His expression softened slightly. And you may have helped break multiple cold cases. 3 days later, the real detectives arrived. From Lakeville. With cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar, they found nothing in Emma's yard. But behind Freeman's house, beneath his garden shed, they discovered something that made national headlines. Emma watched the news in horror. 3 sets of remains, DNA matched to missing women from Lakeville. Freeman, Freeland, was arrested trying to cross the state line. In his car, a gun, fake IDs, and detailed notes about Emma, her schedule, her habits, labeled next. 6 months later, Emma testified at his trial. The cameras were just the beginning, she explained to the jury. My instinct told me something was deeply wrong. She omitted the details of her theatrical production. The prosecution didn't need it. The physical evidence was overwhelming. Freeman received 3 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole. The media dubbed Emma the widow who caught a killer. Talk shows wanted interviews. Publishers offered book deals. She declined them all. Instead, she channeled her unexpected platform toward changing surveillance laws. Current privacy laws leave us vulnerable in our own homes, she testified before state legislators. A camera pointed at your private space is the modern equivalent of a peeping Tom, but worse, it creates permanent recordings of your most personal moments. The Watson Privacy Act passed in her state, then another and another. 1 year after Freeman's arrest, Emma sat in her garden. The roses bloomed where she'd pretended to find bones. Life had moved forward. Her doorbell rang. A young woman stood on her porch, hands trembling. Ms. Watson, I'm Jennifer Hayes. My sister was Megan Hayes, one of the victims. Emma invited her in. I wanted to thank you, Jennifer said, clutching her coffee mug. The police had given up. Everyone had, except you. I didn't set out to find a killer, Emma admitted, just to protect my privacy. Jennifer nodded. But you trusted your instincts when no one else would. You saw something wrong and refused to accept it. After Jennifer left, Emma walked through her yard, truly private now, protected by laws bearing her name. Her theatrical background had taught her that appearances create reality, that sometimes the right performance at the right moment can change everything. She looked up at her house, cameras now gone, Freeman locked away, and whispered to Michael, wherever he was, how's that for a final production? If you've ever felt unsafe in your own space, remember Emma's story. Trust your instincts, document everything, and know that one person really can make a difference. Like this video, if you believe everyone deserves privacy in their own home. Subscribe for more stories about standing up when the system fails. Drop a comment. Have you ever had to deal with invasive neighbors or surveillance? How did you handle it?